University evenings were always special. The light noise of the cafe, the laughter of students, and lives burdened by the weight of books. But that evening had a different color. There were light clouds in the sky, as if the atmosphere was also warning of an upcoming storm. Amna had come a little early today. Self-confidence on her face, purpose in her eyes, and weight in her words. She belonged to an ordinary family, but her dreams were extraordinary. Fast in studies, clear in character, and speaking the truth in her tongue, these were all things that often shocked others. And one such day, she had a collision with the richest and most arrogant boy in the university, Ian. Ian, who often made girls hold their hearts, seemed a little more arrogant today. He got out of his car at the university, put on dark glasses, and as always, his mobile phone in his hand, without paying attention to anyone, was heading towards the cafe. Amna was also coming in the same direction when the two of them met. Ian said with his usual sarcastic smile, "Are you being careful? Or are you just hitting everyone like that?" Amina stopped and looked at him, then said, "Maybe you should be careful. Not everything depends on your wealth. There are some rules and morals too." Ian felt this sentence as if someone had insulted his dignity. For the first time, seriousness came over his face. And he went ahead and said, "Learn how to talk otherwise." "Otherwise what?" Amina said angrily. "What are you going to do? Do you like to humiliate anyone? You are rich, so you will rule over everyone." Ian took a step forward as if he wanted to scare him. But Amina suddenly raised her hand and slapped him hard on the cheek. Silence fell. Surprise, anger, and embarrassment, all swimming together in Ian's eyes. The eyes of the students standing around were like watching a scene from a movie. Ian turned around and said nothing. He just looked at Ian with a strange calmness in his eyes, slapped him and turned back. Everyone thought that Ian had probably changed. But the truth was that at that moment, a terrible revenge was born in his heart. "You have humiliated me in front of everyone, Amina. Now I will break you in a way that you will never be able to forgive yourself. I will leave you with dreams of a bride on the day when you need me the most. Your every tear will be my victory." But from the outside, that Ian became a changed, gentle, moral boy. He came to apologize to Amina and said, "I'm sorry, you were right, I was arrogant. You showed me the mirror. Thank you." Amina was shocked, did not speak for a moment, then smiled softly. "If you really realized your mistake, then it's okay. Don't repeat it again." Ian said to himself, "Yes, I will only repeat it again in the future. I will break it 1,000 times." And thus the thread of friendship was tied. Amina, who was a statue of tenderness and love from the inside, gradually started trusting Ian. She did not know that the path she was stepping on would end on the threshold of ruin in a bridal dress. Sometimes the heart that hurts, the same heart also shows a dream. Ian's words now had a softness, a grace, no less than an actor. He would show himself to Amina as a changed, remorseful person, while inside he was hatching a diabolical plan. Ian started talking to Amina. At first, greetings, then meeting in the library, a few days later tea in a cafe. And then it came to, someday let's sit outside and talk about life. Amina had never imagined that the person she had slapped would be so gentle with her. She felt that perhaps people could change, perhaps someone could go from pride to humility. And that was the mistake that is often made in error, believing someone's words to be true. One day in the university parking lot, Ian stopped Amina and said, "I know I have ruined a lot, but I want to tell you one thing which might give my heart peace." Amina asked in shock, "What?" Ian took a deep breath and said, "I'm starting to like you. Or maybe, I'm starting to love you." Ian's face fell silent for a moment. Dill said, "This is the one you slapped, but now he's changed. He treats you with respect, values your opinion. Maybe he's telling the truth." "Ian," Amina said slowly, "isn't all this happening too quickly?" "Maybe," Ian said softly, "but I've never felt so clear in my life. You're a different girl, you've opened my eyes." A slow smile came to Amana's lips. And so, day after day, the two of them grew closer. Walks after classes, studying together in the library, and giving Amana bouquets of flowers became Ayan's habits. A new feeling began to grow in Amna's heart. She felt as if she was meeting a prince, someone who was even better than her dreams. But she didn't know that dreams sometimes take on the faces of wolves. Ian's nights were spent planning for him. He would tell his friends, "Now is the last step. She has started to trust me blindly." "When will he leave her?" a friend asked. Ian laughed and said, "On the wedding day. When she has become a bride and has been waiting for me all this time, and I will make fun of her in front of everyone. That day will be my victory. This slap will pay off." On the other hand, Amna called her mother for the first time and said, "Mom, maybe I have found someone I like. He respects me a lot. Maybe that is my destiny." The mother said in a prayerful voice, "May Allah make him the true path of your dreams, son." But fate had something else in mind. Ayan proposed to Amina in public, in front of all his friends, with a beautiful ring. Amina's eyes filled with tears. Her heart said, "This is it. This is my destination." Ayan said, "I want to marry you. This week on Friday I want to make you my bride." And Amina? She said yes. That day was a day of joy. But that day also promised destruction. "Mom, he wants to get married on Friday. He says he can't wait much longer." There was hesitation and sparkle in Amana's tone. On the other end of the phone, her mother was silent for a moment, then said slowly, "Son, if he is respecting you, then why the delay? If your happiness lies in him, then my mother's prayers lie in him too." Amana's eyes filled with tears. Since childhood, her mother had been her support. Her father's shadow had been taken away years ago. And today, a prince had come and given her life a new story. All the students at the university were surprised. How is this possible? A boy like Ayan decided to marry Amana. Dude. Amana is a completely ordinary girl and she, the heir to millions. Isn't this a game? But Ayan was showing everywhere that he had changed. He would treat Amina with respect in front of everyone, walk her hand in hand at the university, open doors for her, and drop her home in his car after class. Amina's face would light up every day. And deep down she would think, do dreams like this really come true? Thursday night, the day before the wedding, Amina had taken out a white pear. Her mother arranged her hair and said, "My God, keep my daughter happy always, the love she has received, may it never be taken away." Amina said, "Mom, he takes care of me just like you do. I am very happy." Here in a club in the city, Ayan was sitting and drinking with his friends. "So tomorrow, has that day finally come?" a friend asked. Ayan took a drag on his cigarette and said, "So tomorrow, has that day finally come?" a friend asked. Ayan took a drag on his cigarette and said, "Yes. Tomorrow is the day when Amina will become a bride, and I will leave her and go." "So you will really do all this?" the other asked, laughing. Ayan said with a deep smile, "This is the revenge for this slap. I will break her in such a way that no girl will dare to challenge the pride of a man in the future. And if she cries, then, for me that scene will be the biggest celebration." When the morning sun rose, there was an atmosphere of laughter and joy in Ayana's house. Mother applied perfume and draped a shawl over her head. "Son, today you look like the most beautiful bride in the world to me." Ayana's eyes got wet. "Mummy, just give prayers." All the guests had arrived at the wedding venue. The cleric had arrived. Amna was sitting in a room dressed in her bridal attire, and was waiting. And suddenly, phone call came. Ayan's close friend told Amna's brother, "Ayan won't come. He hasn't gone. He won't get married." "What?" "He says he has taken revenge for the slap. He had staged everything." Amna's brother came into the room. He had the phone in his hand, seriousness on his face, and embarrassment in his eyes. Amna. Ian. He's not coming. Amna didn't hear anything for a moment. Then, as if a wound had been inflicted on her heart. What do you mean? Where is he? He said, he was just taking revenge, he wouldn't get married. Amana's heart sank. Her face turned pale, and then she cried silently. Tears washed away her makeup. Prayers gave up. And that white pear became a symbol of suffering. The same people who were praising her yesterday were saying today, how foolish this girl is. But Amana didn't listen to all of them. She just fell silent. But deep inside, in that silence, a new storm was brewing. Time seemed to have stopped. Amna was sitting in a white dress, but now that dress was no longer a symbol of happiness, but a burden of humiliation. The room was silent, only sobs. The mother was sitting nearby, holding her daughter's hand and crying. Oh God, what was my daughter's fault? Why did someone do this? Silence locked on Amna's lips. Not a single word came out. Only tears of broken dreams flowed from her eyes. 2 days, 3 days. A week passed. She did not leave the room. Daylight, night, darkness. Everything was the same. Messages were coming on the phone. You used to be very sensible, right? The prince came and went. What will you do now? You have escaped disgrace. Otherwise your life would have been ruined. Every message, every word, every sentence seemed like salt on Amna's wounds. Mother was silent, brother was embarrassed, and the world was a spectator. One night, it was raining. Looking at the sky from the window, Amina slowly closed her eyes and asked only one question in her heart. Am I really that weak? Is my existence only connected to the will of a man? Then a voice came from her heart. No. You trusted someone, it's not your fault. Your trust was broken, it was his filth. But now, if you don't control yourself, it will be your weakness. That night was the decision. The next morning Amina left the room. There was exhaustion on her face, but a new sparkle in her eyes. She put the white dress back in the closet, and dusted off the university bag and hung it back on her shoulder. Mother said in shock, "Where are you going?" "Mom, I'm going where my original dream was. I'll complete my studies. Now my destination is not a man. I'll have my own identity." The mother's eyes got wet. My daughter is truly a lioness. When she reached the university, everyone's eyes were on her. Some regretted, some sympathized, some joked, and some just watched the spectacle. But Amna went straight to her class, without saying a word. And that was where her new journey began. Ian heard that Amna had returned to university. He laughed. What will she do now? Not even 2 weeks have passed and she's back. These girls too. Forget everything. But she didn't know that the girl was no longer Amna, she had become fire. She had decided. I will tell her that the one you broke has now become stronger than before. When life knocks someone down, then either they become dust or stone. Amna had not become dust, she had now become stone, strong, silent, and invincible. Her return to the university was no less than an explosion. Those who were thinking that she would commit suicide in depression, or leave the city, were now surprised to see Amna in a new guise. Her dress was as simple as before, but her style had changed. There was no sadness in her eyes, but purpose. There was no smile on her lips, but confidence. She would arrive first in class and leave last. In her studies, she was now at the forefront of every project. Professors began to praise her, and students were convinced of her hard work. One day the results came in the class. Top position, Amna Rafiq. The entire hall erupted in applause. But Amna just sat in her place with a slight smile. He didn't want to hear the wows anymore. He had to convince himself, only by his own ability. Ian was watching all this from a distance. Confusion on his face, a frown on his forehead, and a strange prick in his heart. How is this possible? It should have broken. It should have shattered without me. He said to himself. One day Ian entered the library. Amna was sitting in front, engrossed in her books. Ian approached, said slowly, "Amna." Amna raised her head, met his eyes. But there was no emotion, no suspicion. Only silence. "Aren't you going to talk?" Ian said. Amna turned the page and said slowly, "Talk. To you." "Look, Amna, Stop." This time there was a crack in Amna's voice. "You didn't come to say anything. You just came to see if I was a child or not." Ian's eyes were surprised. Amina leaned forward and said in a slow but clear tone, "You left me so that I would break. But you didn't think that I would melt and become steel." "Ian, I have no words for you now. No feelings, and no time." Ian stood silent for the first time. The one who was once the center of attention of every girl, today could not even receive a look of contempt. Amina lowered her eyes, and only said, "You can go." Ian turned, but something else was happening in his heart. Is this game getting out of my hands? No. It's not possible. But he didn't know that Amina's game had already begun. Sometimes time heals its own wounds, and sometimes new strength is born from those same wounds. Amina had now become an example for the university. Her name was on every tongue, but to some, her silence stung more than her success, especially Ian. One day, an advertisement was put up on the university notice board. International scholarship. Full funding for a research program in the United States will be given to the top position holder. There was only one condition: past academic performance, courage, and moral integrity. A few weeks passed and then the day came. The entire auditorium was packed. The vice-chancellor came on stage and said, "This scholarship is being given to a student who has overcome the most difficult moments in life, who is not only intelligent, but also courageous." Ian's eyes were on Amina, sitting in the front row. And the next moment, the vice-chancellor said loudly, "Miss Amna Rafiq." The applause started. Everyone stood up. Amna simply bowed her head and said thank you, and walked towards the stage. Standing there, she simply said this into the mic. "When life knocks you down, don't look at the ground. Remember the sky. Because that's where flying begins." Sitting down, Ian sat as still as a stone in his place. The one who once wanted to humiliate Amna in front of everyone, today sat bowing his head in front of her. That same day, Amna made a decision. She packed her things, hugged her mother, and started preparing to go abroad after completing her visa, passport, and everything. Knowing all this, Ian felt as if someone had stabbed her in the heart. Will she leave? Just like that? Without me? I wanted to humiliate her, and she is going to the heights of honor. That night, Ian sat alone for the first time and looked at his heart. He who considered himself a winner, today he himself was defeated. What I considered to be dust has become heaven. But it was too late. Across the airport gate, Amna looked back one last time. Her mother was waving her hands with tears in her eyes, and a calm smile was on Amna's face. There was a prayer in her heart, a promise, and a determination. I will prove myself to the world, not with the help of any man, not with the trust of any false relationship. The plane took off, and Amna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This was her new flight. That research institute in America was like a dream. An atmosphere of knowledge, consciousness, and freedom everywhere. Amna immersed herself completely in this environment. Studying, research, presentations, seminars, she excelled in every field. One day the director of the institute called her into his office and said, "Miss Amna, you're not just a brilliant researcher, you are a born leader." Amna said slowly, "Thank you, but I'm just a girl who didn't let herself break." On the other hand, Ian's situation was different. After Amna left, he had lost everything. He didn't feel like going to classes. He lost touch with his friends, and above all, his palace of self-love had collapsed with a bang. He often looked at Amna's old photos, remembered her voice, and said to himself in his heart, "What have I lost? The one I wanted to humiliate was my real honor. Now he had started hiding even in the university. If anyone saw him, he would avert his eyes. Now there was no wow for him, just emptiness. One day she said to her friend, "I wish I had given him a chance. I wish I had chosen the path of love, not revenge. But it's too late now." In 2 years, Amna achieved a position she could only dream of. She got an officer's post in an international organization, a high salary, and her own identity in front of the world. One day she opened her mobile. Among dozens of unfamiliar messages, an old familiar voice had written something. "Amna, if you're listening, then know that I've lost. Not to you, to myself. Ian." Amna smiled and closed the message. Then she wrote just one sentence in the mobile note. "You had left me as a bride. I gave myself a kingdom." 5 years had passed. Now Amina was no longer just introduced as a student or researcher. She had become Dr. Amina Rafiq. Amina, who had raised her voice on women's empowerment and research at the international level, was invited to Pakistan's largest youth summit. Its title was Journey from Self to Self. Amina took the return flight. As the plane landed on Pakistani soil, a cold wave ran through her heart. This was the very soil where she had been broken the most. But today she felt complete. The conference hall was packed with people. There was talk of Amina's arrival on TV, media, and social media. And there, in a row behind, Ian was also sitting. The scene had changed. Before, he was standing in the middle of the crowd, and Amina was alone. Today, Amna was on stage. And Ian was lost in the crowd. Amna came on stage and said in a clear, strong voice, "I am one of those girls who were broken in the name of love. But I want to join those women who choose their own path from ruin to greatness. I did not become a bride, but I became the pride of the world's eyes. I am standing on stage only because of my hard work. And I do not want another Amna to suffer the wounds that I have suffered. So, my girls, know your worth. Never forget your greatness in the glare of a false prince." Applause began to ring. People stood up. The hall was echoing with applause. But in one place, one person was sitting silently, with tears in his eyes, regret in his heart. The conference ended. People started taking pictures with Amna, asking for autographs. Suddenly, Ian slowly approached her. "Amana." Amana turned around. The same face, but instead of pride, there was regret in her eyes. "I know I can't meet your eyes. I'm the one who left you in front of everyone. And you. Standing in front of everyone today, you don't even need to say anything to embarrass me." Amana said calmly. "You stopped me from becoming a bride. But you didn't know that I didn't just want to be a bride. I wanted to be an example. And thank God. You removed the veil from my path. Otherwise I might still be in your shadow." Ian stood silently. Amana bowed her head softly and turned around saying, "I have forgiven you. But I never want to see you again." Today for the first time, Ian felt completely alone. Amina. She sat in a car, rolled down the window and looked up at the sky. "My God, thank God you gave me my identity." Time had passed, the wounds had healed, and Amina had now become a bright star. After the conference, Amina's voice began to resonate more in international organizations. She was nominated for the Women of Courage Award by the United Nations. The award ceremony was in New York. When Amina reached the stage to receive her award, the entire hall stood up. Amina's words on stage were not just words, they were the voice of every girl who had ever broken, and then put herself together and stood before the world. "I was broken, abandoned, humiliated. But I turned these wounds into a ladder. My girls, as many times as this world knocks you down, you must rise up again. Because you are no one's property. You are your own identity." Applause, tears in your eyes, and heartbeats were all with Amina. At the same event, Amina met a person. A simple, polite, civilized young man. He was also associated with a human rights organization. In the very first meeting, Rayhan bowed his head after hearing Amina's words and said, "Women like you deserve not only praise but imitation." Amina smiled and thanked him, but did not let anything in her heart. But day by day, as she met Rayhan more, she realized that this person was not like the one who cheats just in the name of love. Rayhan always listened to her seriously, appreciated her for her hard work, and never spoke of her beauty, just saluted the greatness of her character. One day Amina asked Rayhan, "Why do you always look at me with such respect?" Rayhan replied slowly, "Because you have presented yourself to the world with respect. And I don't love you, I'm proud of you." Amina fell silent. No words were spoken for several moments. Then Amina said slowly, "If I ever have someone in my life, then I would like them to be like this. Someone who considers me a human being, not a princess." Rayhan lowered her eyes. A few months later, Rayhan met Amina's mother, simply, respectfully, and seriously. And he said only one thing. "I want to make your daughter not a wife, but a life partner, who will not touch her wounds, but will heal them with her." There were tears in the mother's eyes. "May Allah grant you this, son." The wedding ceremony was small, simple, and pure. No music, no show, no fuss. Just a peaceful bond of two strong human beings. After the wedding, Amina said to Rayhan, "For the first time I have truly become a bride. But this time I have no fear. Because now I have love and respect with me." Rayhan placed his hand on her forehead and said, "Now you are not just my wife. My companion, may my prayers be accepted." In college, an innocent, intelligent, and honorable girl, Amana, has a falling out with an arrogant, rich boy, Ayan. The girl slaps her. And that slap burns Ayan's ego and turns it into a fire of revenge. Ayan gains Amana's trust by pretending to be in love with her. And on her wedding day, he leaves her in front of everyone in her bridal attire. Amana breaks down. Please, Kate. But then she gets up. She completes her studies, tops the class, and earns a scholarship abroad to make a name for herself around the world. Ayan only wanted to disgrace her. But Amana becomes a symbol of honor. Years later, when she returns to Pakistan for an international conference, Ayan sees her and feels his defeat for the first time. Amina forgives him, but doesn't look back. Then a good, honorable man, Rayhan, enters Amina's life, who not only loves her but also respects her. Amina performs a simple marriage with him and says, "Now I have truly become a bride, and this time with honor." After marrying Rayhan, Amina's life had become peaceful, but there was a void inside her, for the thousands of girls who were still being victimized by the lies of some Ayan. Rayhan listened to her, and one evening she said to Amina, "Amina, you are not just my wife. You are the hope of many girls. If you want, you can change the path of all of them." This sentence sank into Amina's heart. A few months later, Amina opened an institution in Pakistan. New Light, for a new life for broken women. This institution was for these girls who were betrayed, who were humiliated by relationships, whose dreams had been shattered. Amina did to them what she had done to herself. Encouraged, taught, cared for, and then made them stand before the world. Ayan's life had turned dark. His business was closed, his friends turned away, and everyone knew what he had done to Amina. Now he was looking for a job. The university where he had once ruled. Today no one dared to even mention his name. One day he went to give an interview. When he saw the name of the company, he was shocked. Nai Roshni Foundation. It was the same person on the other side of the door. Mina. Ayan's breath caught. As soon as he entered the room, his eyes were on the floor. Amina closed the file, looked at him and said, "Sit down, Ayan. Are you here for work? So you know, here you have to work with respect. Because here we only lift women up, not put them down." Ian, with tears in his eyes, said softly, "Amana, I am not that person anymore. I don't just want forgiveness, I want a chance. Amina thought for a moment, then said slowly, I forgive you, Ian. But remember, you now have to be the protector of a woman's honor. Because you know what humiliation means. Budgie. Where should I go? Everyone said I was infamous. What was my fault? The only thing was that I trusted someone. These were the words of Saba, a 19-year-old girl who came to Amina's institution, Nai Roshni, crying. A wound on her face, emptiness in her eyes, and only the truth on her tongue. Amina silenced her, placed a hand on her shoulder and said, Saba, it's not your fault that you are broken. Your courage is your identity. This place is yours. No one will leave you now, no one will break you. Saba's story was the same. That Amina had endured years ago. A university friend, a false love, a promise of marriage, and then disgrace in the name of honor. Parents also rejected her. The people of the neighborhood taunted her. And that boy. He got married and moved out. Amina listened to him silently, then held out her hand and said, From today on you are not Saba, you are Amina. You will rekindle the light of your name. I promise I will get you to that place. Where you will be proud of yourself, and the world will be amazed at you. After weeks of counseling, education, training, and psychological rehabilitation, Saba was no longer Saba. One day, Amina called her to her office and said, An international organization needs a social worker who has suffered herself so that she can understand the pain of others. And I have given you your name. Saba's hands started shaking. But Baji me, how can I? Amina smiled and said, I asked myself the same question too. And time had given the answer. You too don't wait for time. Be the answer yourself. A few months later, Saba had become a regional women empowerment coordinator. Her interview was published in the newspapers, and people realized for the first time that girls who break down can do anything. Meanwhile, Ayan, who had now become an ordinary working staff of Nai Roshni, saw Saba's progress and quietly came to Amina's office. These girls of yours are better than all of us. Even if I want to, I can't be anything like them. Amina said, You can only become better when you learn to share someone's pain quietly. Without praise, without wow. Ayan lowered his eyes. The episode ended. But Saba's success gave hope to many new Sabas. And Amina's voice was no longer just in one institution. It began to resonate throughout the country. The day was getting dark. Amna was working on the workshop plan for the next week in her office, when suddenly Rayhan entered the room quickly. Amna, we might have a problem. Someone has started a campaign on social media on Nai Roshni. That we are against the family system. That we are teaching girls to rebel. Amna closed her eyes, took a breath and spoke calmly. These are the same people who want to live in darkness. Our light is piercing them. But we will not back down. The next day, a group of influential political figures came to the institution, threatened, made false accusations and said, Close this institution. These girls are getting out of our control. You are bringing this new culture in which men are considered the enemy. Amina looked them in the eye and said, I am not against men. I am against oppression. And if you defend oppression, then yes, I am against you. The threats started to increase. Fake videos on social media, false accusations. And some local channels also started calling the institution a den of disorder. Rayhan was worried, Ayan was silent, but Amina stood like a rock. One night, a call came from an unknown number. The voice was masculine, harsh and merciless. If Nai Roshni is not shut down by next week, then you and your organization will be wiped off the face of the earth. Amna removed the phone from her ear and sat down in front of her mother and said, Mother, if something happens tomorrow, then you will know I kept my promise. I lifted the women up and did not let myself fall. Mother, with tears in her eyes, placed her hand on her head. Now it was time for the press conference. Amna called all the media in the country. Saba, Zainab, Salma and several affected women stood with her on the stage. Amna came to the mic. Face calm, voice authoritative. I want to ask today. Is our honor only linked to men's decisions? Doesn't a woman have the right to show her wounds? I am Amna Rafiq. I am a human being before being someone's sister, daughter or wife. And I am not afraid of anyone's lies, threats or guns. The whole country was shocked. The trends changed. We Stand with Amna became the top trend on social media. The same channels that had made accusations in the past now started calling her a national heroine. Rayhan held Amna's hand. Today you not only saved the new light, but also gave voice to thousands of silent languages. And Ian, who was watching every scene from afar, had only one prayer in his eyes. I wish I had answered her slap with dignity that day. I wish I had held her instead of breaking her. In every street of the city, on social media, in the news, and on international forums, only one name was echoing. Amna Rafiq. The voice of broken souls. The United Nations invited Amna for the Global Change Maker Award. Invitations started pouring in from New York, London, Dubai, everywhere. But Amna announced one thing first. We are now going to make Nai Roshni an international organization, where oppressed women from not only Pakistan, but all over the world will get a new life. On the other hand, Ian, who was still working with the organization as a volunteer, was embarrassed to see Amna every morning. He no longer talked, he just listened, wrote, worked. One night he sat silently outside Amna's office. Amina opened the door, looked at him and asked, Ian, are you okay? Ian stood up. His eyes were moist, his voice trembling. Ayana, I have come to ask you for something. Neither forgiveness nor mercy. I have come to ask for justice from myself. Amina fell silent, and Ian continued. I broke you just for my own ego. And now, I myself am shattered. You gave courage to the world. And I am crying in front of my weakness. I want you to show me the mirror for the last time, in which I can see myself, truly. Amina said a few moments later. So look, Ian, you could have become what you are today, even that day, when you abandoned me in front of everyone. But now you have paid your price, and the truth is that you are no longer weak, but have become human in shame. Tears welled up in Ian's eyes. A few weeks later, Amina went to London. When she finished speaking at a huge conference there, a senior citizen came on stage and said, Today we did not hear the speech of a leader. We heard a journey of misfortune to greatness. This is not just Amina's victory. It is the victory of every girl who fell apart, and then put herself together. The whole world stood up and paid tribute to Amina. When Amana returned home, Ian quietly placed a note in her hand. Now I also want to open a school for New Light, only for girls, where they can not only get an education, but also know themselves. Amana read the note and said only this. Ayana, if repentance is true, then a person also becomes a light. Perhaps you too can now be the light of someone's life. It was morning. Amna was just sitting with the children in Nai Roshni, setting the breakfast table when the door suddenly opened, and 4 uniformed men entered. We have received some complaints from you against the institution. We have to close Nai Roshni temporarily. Rayhan stepped forward and said, Is there a warrant? Is there a legal notice? The officer said coldly, This is an order from above. Amna listened to everything silently, then said to the children affectionately, Go to your rooms, children, and don't be afraid. No one can extinguish this light. The news spread like wildfire. Nai Roshni closed investigation against Amna Rafiq. Social media again split into two. Some people became silent spectators, some were scared, and some again stood with Amna. Rayhan said, Amna, we can get a stay order from the court if we want. But Amna said, Rayhan, I will not go to court. I will fight my case in the hearts of the people. A day later, Amna called a press conference. Journalists, media, social activists, everyone was present in the hall. Amna came on stage. A calm face, but a storm in her eyes. She took the mic and said, "Today my institution has closed. But has anyone been able to close the wounds that women have been healing for years? Have the screams of those girls who were humiliated just because they did not remain silent stopped? This institution seems dangerous to you. Because here women do not just cry. Here women learn to fight." Then Amna said the sentence that was written in golden words in history. "If my voice can shake your throne, then know that my mission is bigger than your laws." The entire hall erupted in applause. Live videos, clips, posts. Amna Speaks Truth became a trend all over the world. That same night, an order was issued from the Prime Minister's house. New light should be restored immediately, and Amna Rafiq should be appointed as the special advisor to the Women Empowerment Board. Ayan, who was standing aside and watching, tears came out of his eyes. This is the same girl whom I had left only in anger. And today she is teaching the whole world conscience. The institution reopened. But now not only the doors, but also the hearts had opened. Amna had a board put up outside the institution, which read, "This door will never close to any oppressed person, no matter how hard the world tries." Geneva International Human Rights Conference. 9th session. Amina stood on stage. Dressed simply, eyes full of confidence, and her copy in her hands. But this time her face was somewhat serene. Rayhan had said before leaving, "Remember, you are not just the voice of the oppressed. You are now the eyes of the world. Speak the truth, don't be afraid." The conference theme was Institutional Silence on Gender Violence. Amina came on stage, grabbed the mic and began to say, "When a girl is oppressed, she is not only fighting for her body, she is also facing society's questions, silence and scorn. And the biggest crime, becoming a silent spectator." Then she raised her hand and said, "I am Amina Rafiq," who one day only responded to a slap. Dignity was taken away. Today I say to the world, has a man's ego become bigger than a woman's life? Do we have to become a spectacle to demand justice? No, times have changed now. We will not be a spectacle, we will become the law. The entire hall erupted in applause. After the speech, Amna came down from the stage, and a journalist came up to her. His tone was slightly nervous. "Madam Amna, I have something to show you. This is a fact related to your past, which you probably don't know." Amna was shocked. "What do you mean?" The journalist handed Amna an envelope. The envelope contained an old photo, in which a woman crying badly, and a young girl standing next to her. This photo was 18 years old. And below it was written, "Victim of honor-based violence, missing, girl named Amna, age 5. Amna's breath stopped. It was her mother, and that little girl, Amna herself. The journalist said softly, "Your mother was a victim of abuse back then. And you both changed cities, changed names, and tried to live again with a new identity. This file was just found in the police records. Did you know?" Tears started to flow from Amina's eyes. She remembered those blurry moments of childhood. Her mother's fear, her screams at night. They weren't all lies. It was all true. After returning home, Amina asked her mother only one question. "Mom, did we ever run away?" Her mother hugged her silently and said, "Yes, son, we ran away. But only from ruin. To save you. I wanted you to be that Amina, who would never force anyone to run away." Amina started crying. That same night, she posted her entire story on social media. A long video in which she said for the first time, "I am not just a girl. I am the daughter of thousands of mothers who have burned themselves to save their daughters." The video went viral around the world. And Amina was no longer just called a heroine. But the survivor queen, Nai Roshni, had now become a symbol of hope for oppressed women not only in Pakistan, but all over the world. Amna announced, "We are now going to build a global headquarters, where legal, educational and psychological help will be given to women of any country, any religion, any nation." This announcement resonated all over the world. But as soon as the land was purchased, a powerful real estate group filed a case. "This land is commercial. A human rights institution cannot be built here." Rehan got worried. "Nai Roshni, those people are very influential. We need a strong lawyer." Amna opened a file and said, "I know. And I know who can win this fight." Rehan asked in surprise. "Who?" Amna said softly. "Ayan." The next day, Amna was in the small conference room of Nai Roshni. Ian was sitting in front of her. Ian asked in surprise, "Me? For you? Amna, can you still trust me?" Amna took a deep breath and said, "Ian, what you did was my past. But what you have become can be my pride. If you stand up for this institution." Ian's eyes filled with tears. "This will be the atonement for my life. And I will pay it with all honesty." The two sides were face to face in the court. On one side were powerful political and business people. And on the other side Amna, her voice, her truth. And now her lawyer, Ian Shah. Ian said in his arguments, "The institution in front of me is not just a structure of walls. It is hope. And you cannot bury the future of nations by banning hope. If you bury justice in the papers of the earth, then no one will dare to speak the truth tomorrow." The judge looked at Ayan silently, then turned to Amina and said, "Every attempt to extinguish your light has failed. And today this court allows the construction of the new Roshni headquarters." Amina, Ayan and Rehan stood outside the court. Ayan said softly, "Amina, I felt like a good person for the first time today. Perhaps your belief is the greatest reward of my life." Amina nodded and said, "Ayan, I had forgiven you. But today you have forgiven yourself." That same evening, the foundation of the Nai Roshni International Headquarters was laid. And at that moment, Amina held her mother's hand and said, "Amy, today we have not only built an institution, we have built a shelter for every oppressed." The mother, with tears in her eyes, only said, "You are my daughter. But today you have become the mother of the whole world." "Amina, I have something to tell you, which has been hidden in my heart for years." These were the words of Ayan. For the first time since his victory in court, he had come to say something personal to Amina. Amina looked at him in shock. Ayan's face was calm, but there was a war going on in his eyes that he had been fighting for years. "Amina, I didn't just forgive you. I started to understand you. Started to love you. And today I am not just a lawyer or a criminal. Just like a normal person, I want to ask you a question. Can I have a place in your heart?" A silence fell. Rehan, who was a senior member of the institution, had stood by Amina every step of the way for many years. He was also watching everything from afar. Everyone knew. Rehan also had a silent passion for Amina in his heart, but he never expressed it. That same night, Amina was sitting with her mother on the roof. "Ami, on one side is the person who has changed and wants to be the first beacon of my light. And on the other side is the one who has been silently shadowing me for years. Who should I choose?" Mother looked up at the sky and said, "Son, you have always made the lives of others better. Now decide for yourself. But remember, love is what completes you, not what just makes up for the past." The next day, Amina called both of them, Rehan and Ayan. There was a deep silence in the room. Amina said to Ayan, "Rehan, you always stood by me. Become my partner in my work, my dreams, my every step. And you did all this without any claim. I always respect you." Rehan said with a slight smile, "Amina, respect is enough. If love is not destined, then asking for it is like taking it away. I will find happiness in every decision you make." Then Amina looked at Ayan. Ayan, you tried to change. And this change touched my heart. But love is a new journey. And in my heart there is still something for myself that is not complete. I have forgiven you. But love, it happens automatically, not by plan. Ayan lowered his eyes and said, So you mean you changed late? Amana replied softly, No, you changed in time. But maybe I am ahead of time. Now for me, love means not just companionship, but inner peace, which I only get in my mission now. The room remained silent. In left. Rehan also left with silent steps. And Amana. She sat on the steps of the institution and started looking at the sky. My life is not devoid of love. But that love, maybe now, is more human than human. The day was normal. The usual activities were going on in Nai Roshni. Amna was sitting with the children and preparing for the new session. Suddenly Rehan came in panting. Amna, we have received information that a conspiracy has been hatched to attack you. This is the same old group, which cannot tolerate you. Amna said calmly. No one can stop me from spreading the light. If someone is so afraid of the dark, then you should know. Our candle is burning very brightly. That same night, an unknown girl came to the main door of the institution. Very scared, covered in wounds, and with only one cry in her eyes. Madam Amna, I need shelter. My father wants to kill me. Amna immediately called her in. First she applied ointment to her wounds, then a soft bed, and then treated like a mother. Someone asked, Amana, you've received an attack threat, and you're bringing in a stranger at a time like this. Amna laughed and said, Even if I had to give my life for my life every time, I still wouldn't leave a daughter at the door. The next morning, when Amna was with the children on the lawn outside the office, then a motorbike was seen speeding towards Amna. In a few moments, everyone understood. This is a suicide attack. People started screaming, children ran here and there. Rehan tried to push Amna away. But before that, the same girl whom Amna had sheltered all night stepped forward and pushed Amna hard, herself jumped towards that bike. Boom! The ground shook. Smoke, noise, screams. And then silence. Amna had fallen to the ground, conscious but bleeding. His face was pale, his breath was labored. Rehan stood holding her, helplessness in his eyes. Emergency calls had been made. The police and ambulance had all arrived. Rehan got close to Amina's ear and said, Amina, don't close your eyes. You still have a lot to do. Amina said softly, Whether I live or not. But the new light never goes out. The next 24 hours in the hospital were an ordeal. The whole country was praying on TV only this. Amina, may your friend live. The international media, the government, the common people, all had united for Amina. 24 hours later, the doctor came out. All were standing there, their breath still. The danger has been averted. Amina has survived. Rehan fell down in prostration there. The children started crying with joy. And flowers started raining down on the door of new light. The first thing Amana said when she came to her senses. What happened to that girl? The one who saved my life. Rehan said softly. She was martyred. But as she left, she lit your light forever. Amana said with moist eyes. I gave her shelter. She gave me life. This is love. This is revolution. Global Peace and Humanity Icon Award. Paris 2025-inch. In the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, leaders, ministers, journalists, and social activists from around the world gathered. A name was flashing on the stage screen. Amna Rafiq. From victim to vision. When Amna reached the stage, there was complete silence. A white dress, a light dupatta, and that reflection of light on her face, which only emerges after patience, pain, and greatness. Before the speech, the anchor said on the microphone, Today the world is paying tribute to a person who turned his pain into the salvation of other human beings. Amna held the microphone and began to say with a deep breath, "This honor is not for me. It is for all the women who screamed but were not heard, those who were broken but not shattered, those who tore the veil of silence and spoke the truth. This is the reward for their patience, their courage, and their light." Then came the moment when Amina shocked everyone. "I dedicate this award to the person who did the greatest injustice to me, and then changed himself, became my shield in my greatest fight." The hall fell silent. A few people whispered, "Is she talking about Ian?" Amina looked at the microphone and added, "I never called him love. But maybe all the twists and turns of my story were connected to him. His cruelty became the first step of my revolution, and his repentance, the last protection of my light." The silence on the stage was broken. The people stood up. Applause, whistles, tears, emotions, all flowed out at once. After the press conference, a reporter asked Amina, "Would you like to reconnect with that person?" Amina smiled and replied, "I was never related to him. He was just a paper in my exam. And now that paper is complete. My life's journey is now with myself. And my love is only with my light." Ian, who was watching this whole event from Pakistan, stood quietly by his window. He had a small pamphlet of Nai Roshni in his hand, on which was a picture of Amina, and below it was written, "This is the girl who forgives but never erases." Tears started to fall from Ian's eyes. He looked up at the sky and said only this, "Amina, you did not forgive me. Taught me the art of survival. When a woman wins, the whole generation wins." Amana, now a little older, but her eyes still held the same sparkle, the same courage, and the same silent scream that had been awound inside her years ago. A little 12-year-old girl named Noor entered the institution's courtyard with shaky steps. Her face bore marks of old injuries. Her clothes were torn, and in her eyes the same question that had been on Amana's face years ago. Noor sat quietly in the corner of the institution, saying nothing to anyone. Amana, who was watching everyone, came closer to her, slowly sat down and asked, "What is your name?" Noor lowered her eyes and said, "Noor." Amana smiled slightly and said, "So you are the light for whom this institution was built." Noor's eyes were filled with tears began to flow. Amna hugged him. Then she said what her mother had told her one day, "Son, we are never destroyed. We only change. And one day you will become the girl of whom time will be proud." Amna enrolled Noor in the Nai Roshni scholarship the next day. She taught her, groomed her, and gave her everything that Amna never had in her childhood. Noor soon became the topper of every class, started speaking, started learning, and one day she won the title of Chairperson Nai Roshni, Junior Wing. 15 years later, Noor had now become a young, confident, and impressive girl. The world started calling her Little Amna. And one day Noor came to Amna. Amna was now sick. Time and fatigue had weakened him, but his face was still illuminated by the light of faith. Noor sat in front of him and said, Amina, today the whole world praises my name, but I want to give you everything. My success, my recognition, my life." Amina held Noor's hand and said softly, "No, Noor. Now is the time for me to give you the inheritance, which I have been handling for years." She took out a sealed file, on which was written, "New light, for future generations." Amina handed the file to Noor and said, "Now you are not just Noor. You are Amina. And this institution, this mission, this pain, all are yours." Tears flowed from Noor's eyes, and she touched Amina's feet. A few days later, Amna passed away quietly, but at her funeral, thousands of people were there. of every race, every religion, every age. And all said in one voice, this was not just a woman. This was a revolution. Even today, New Light is a refuge for women, children, and the oppressed around the world. There is only one sentence written on the door. This light is not for one. It is for everyone who seeks hope in the darkness.